Hey, what's up, all you art geeks? Today we're going to talk a little bit about tonal composition. This subject is near and dear to my heart. I am always thinking about tonal composition pretty much before anything else with my paintings. When I'm doing portraits, I think, okay, yeah, sure, there's going to be a painting of a person somewhere in the middle of this composition, but how do I get the tonal composition to interact with the subject? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And of course, just to give me a little something to work off of, I'm going to use the good old ChatGPT and ask it, why is tonal composition so important for a painting? And the very first thing it says is tonal composition is crucial in paintings for several reasons. And it looks like it gives me 7 of them. So we're going to go through those, see how it does. I have come to learn that ChatGPT is pretty good at creating some nice bullet points for me to talk about. So before we get into that, I want to quickly mention that I do have a Patreon account that you should check out, because this painting actually that we're watching today is from Patreon, and it's actually all about composition. And if you want to see that in its entirety, go over to Patreon, check it out. You will learn some things. I'm sure you will. If you go over there, you're going to learn a few things about composition, and not just from this tutorial, but from many others. So again, check it out. Now, back to what ChatGPT is thinking. The first bullet point that it has for me is emphasis and focus. It says tonal composition helps create emphasis and guide the viewer's eye towards specific areas of the painting. I couldn't have said it better myself, ChatGPT. Good job. I would say with this painting in particular, the one I used here for a tutorial, I decided to go with a kind of landscape theme tonal composition where it's dark towards the bottom and then just sort of gradiates to a lighter, brighter top. And it creates a nice composition to immerse the portrait into. And this creates a lot of emphasis on the mood. So number 1, I like that one. Number 2 is mood and atmosphere. I kind of already talked about this with the first one, but yes, the mood is something that can vary so easily by changing up your tonal composition. Let's say you have a very bright scene. Let's say like most of your tonal composition is on the brighter side, like you're closer to the midtones on the brighter side, and maybe just the dark, super black areas are very, very limited. You're going to get an overall mood and atmosphere that is maybe a little bit more uplifting, a little bit more positive. But if you darken a painting, say all black, if you go all the way the opposite direction, it's going to seem more dark and disturbing and more dramatic. And it might give you vibes of sadness and hopelessness and so many other negative thoughts just by changing the tonal composition towards the dark side. Now, this one in particular, I'd say is right in the middle. So I could see a lot of people, when they look at this painting, they might have mixed emotions. They may not know how to feel about it because it's so right in the middle, with having a little bit of light, a little bit of midtone, and a little bit of the dark. So a lot of drama there when you find someplace in the middle. The next one on the list here is depth and dimension. It says here, tonal variations are essential for conveying a sense of depth and 3-dimensionality in a 2-dimensional medium. And I would say that's very much happening in this portrait that I'm working on right now, by creating that sort of immersive environment that it's in, going from dark to light. It puts this portrait in a sense of a very immersive and 3-dimensional space. I would say depth and dimension, they can be they're overlapping. They're both very similar in the concept of what it's saying here, but I think ChatGPT did a really good job of mentioning both of those. All right, the next one from ChatGPT is unity and cohesion. And it says tonal harmony ensures a cohesive and unified look in a painting. If you have a portrait just sitting there in a flat, boring, 2-dimensional space where there's nothing happening in the background, there's no interaction between the tonal composition and the portrait, it's going to be a little bit more boring, in my opinion. So you want to think of those kind of things when you're setting up your portrait, not to just have this figure sitting in a flat space with nothing happening behind it. But there are always exceptions to that. I've seen a lot of great artists have a pretty basic background and do some things that just make it feel like it is still in a 3D environment. So there's ways to break those rules. Try a lot of different things, but I'd say if you want to create an eye-catching portrait, try to implement a lot of shifts in your tones around the subject and just see what works for you the best. All right, the next one, it says here is composition and balance. Tonal composition plays a key role in determining the balance and arrangement of elements. Definitely, this is something that I have to fight with sometimes with some of my compositions. When I put a face in the middle of my composition, when it's somewhere in the middle, if the lighting's coming from the top, the left, the right, the bottom, if the lighting is in a funky place, that will really dictate where you put the subject in your overall composition to create a balance. And this is where you'll need to play with the tonal composition overall, where the lights and darks are placed so that it does feel balanced. And you can have the subject right in the perfect spot, but if you don't have the tonal composition just right, it will feel imbalanced and it won't feel well composed. All right, the next one on the list is narrative and storytelling. And I tell you what, this one might be my favorite one that it's picked out so far, because when I'm creating my compositions, if there's something I'm trying to do with my overall painting, it is to create a narrative and to create storytelling with tonal composition, but also with color and facial expressions, things like that. But I tell you what, if the tonal composition isn't there, if it is not in a place where it draws the viewer in, it is really hard to get people to pay attention and want to look at the story that's happening within the painting. They don't really care about the narrative. If you have a boring tonal composition, if your painting is flat, it's all mid-tones, you're not reaching out to the full bright white areas and then back to the dark areas, it can create a kind of boring portrait. It can create a boring painting in general, no matter what you're doing. So think of your painting as a black and white painting first. And if it's successful that way, then you are going to have a way better chance at telling the story that you want to tell. And then finally, ChatGPT, great job again. Expressive qualities. If you have a painting that is all in the midtones, again, like I mentioned before, it's going to have a quality to it that's a little bit more subtle, a little bit more easygoing. It's not going to really push the drama too much usually. If you go really bright, it's going to feel more cheerful. If it's darker, it's going to have a quality that conveys maybe more drama. Depending on how you do this, whether it's very subtle with very bold changes from dark to light, or going very gradual from the mid-tones into some slightly darker tones or lighter tones, and then pushing it to the boundaries of light and dark, you're going to have very different qualities to the expressiveness of your painting. So I think, once again, ChatGPT did a great job. I'm actually kind of curious to know what you all think about my use of ChatGPT for these little discussions. I think it creates some nice bullet points, some nice discussion points. So let me know in the comments what you think about the videos I've been producing the last few times here. Once again, I got to quickly mention, check out my Patreon account where I have a bunch of tutorials that will help you with your oil painting journey, your portrait painting journey. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you once again for checking out another one of my videos, you art geeks. I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.